All right, welcome to the Blueprint Leadership Podcast. I'm Wright, your 18th Chief Master Sergeant of the Air Force. And I want to say thanks to everyone for joining us today. My guest today is someone that I've really been looking forward to speaking to, someone that I've worked with over the past 2 to 3 years, I think, since I've been the Chief Master Sergeant of the Air Force. She is the 16th Command Chief Master Sergeant of the Office of Special Investigations, better known as Air Force OSI. And it's an honor. It's an honor to sit down and talk to you. And I want to welcome Chief Master Sergeant Karen Beirne-Flint.
Thank you, Chief. The honor is all mine.
Yeah, no, welcome to the show. So tell us about your journey. You ended up leaving Bloomingdale, New Jersey. You joined the United States Air Force. What drew you to the Air Force?
Well, sir, it's a pretty long journey because I left Bloomingdale, New Jersey, and went to college. So I did 2 years at the Roger Williams University up in Rhode Island. After about my second year, I met my first spouse, and then I decided we were going to get married, and he went into the Air Force, so I was a dependent spouse living in Tampa, Florida, with our son, thinking that life was good. And I didn't know anything about the military, didn't understand why they played the music at the end of the day, had no idea about the culture. We lived off base, so I didn't go on base very often. It only took him about 2 years to realize he wasn't a good fit for the Air Force, and so they asked him to leave. He was a firefighter. And during that time, it was a shock to the family. We didn't have income. I was working part-time as a manager of a Pizza Hut. And when he was asked to leave, I had to work full-time, which is about 60 hours a week, with 1 day off. It was a Tuesday. That was not sad. And
At Pizza Hut?
Pizza Hut.
Okay.
Yes, sir. And so one day I was sitting down with his supervisor, Tech Sergeant Roy Calvin, and he said, "You should join the Air Force." And I said, "Are you kidding me? Do I look Air Force?" He's like, "No, serious." Because when we moved down there to Tampa, I did go back to school. I was trying to finish my bachelor's degree, and when he was asked to leave, we lost everything, so I had to stop. And so I was devastated and I was depressed. And he said, "You should really consider joining the military because I think you would do well." And at the time, I didn't believe him, and I tried to figure it out on our own. Things weren't working out. Got very desperate. You hit a low place. Went to the state of Florida for help because we had a hard time putting food on the table, and they said I needed to quit my job, and they would put us on state assistance, and that was not something I wanted to do. So then I went to the recruiter, and I joined the Air Force.
Yeah.
And landed at Grand Forks, North Dakota.
Yeah.
But I first ran it through my brother, because my brother was already in the Army.
Mm.
And if anybody in the world knew who I was, he knew who I was. Mm. So I called him up, and I'm like, "What do you think about this?" And he said, "Well, don't want you in the Army," because he was in infantry. He was actually working toward being an 82nd Airborne Ranger is what he wanted to do. He said, "Nope, don't join the Army. You don't need to be in the Navy. No, Marines, you probably can't handle it. The Air Force is probably where you need to be."
Yeah.
So
well, hey, man, I think we lucked out. I tell you what I really like about your story. It's not that much different from mine and many other airmen like us who we didn't grow up thinking, "Hey, I want to join the Air Force and serve my country or defend the universe." But somehow the universe grabbed us and brought us here. And like many of our airmen, you've had a very, very successful career. Now, I know you're OSI and you have a badge and you have a gun. But if you call me sir again, I'm going to have you arrested. So you got to call me Wright the rest of this interview.
Yes, Wright.
All right, there we go. Now, what drew you to? So after you came in, and a little bit of humble beginnings. What made you want to be an OSI agent?
Again, not something I was planning on doing. Coming into the Air Force saved my life. So when it didn't take me very long. My life had a couple of bumps in it, and what I learned early on was it wasn't necessarily the job that I was there for. It was the people, because no matter where I went, no matter what I did, the people to my left, to my right, and people above me and below me were always there to help. So, I spent 5 years at Grand Forks. I ended up getting a divorce, and then I ended up getting remarried to my current husband, who was also an airman. And we traveled the world a little bit. We were both information managers at the time. It's admin now. We ended up in Alaska, And while I was in Alaska, I got an opportunity to be a PME instructor. So I got to teach Airman Leadership School for 4 years. While I was there, I finished up my education, and I made tech. I was about 9 years in, and they came back, the career field came back and said, you can't come back to the 3 Alpha career field. We're overmanned, so you either cross-train or get out. And I had just finished my master's degree, and I was going to then decided I was going to separate and try to get my PhD in forensic psychology. Meanwhile, there was an agent who would come into the classroom and talk to all the students, every class. And so, we started chit-chatting, and he was like, well, my undergraduate is in psychology, and I really am fascinated by why people do what they do, which made my fascinating in leadership also part of my journey. And so, he said, well, have you thought about OSI? And I said, why, no, I have not. And so he brought me over, and I sat down, and we talked, and I looked at what they did, and it terrified me. I never saw myself in law enforcement or working counterintelligence investigations or doing anything with a gun and a badge. And so after long talks with my husband, and because it is a family decision, it's not something you can decide to do by yourself, it terrified me. So I said, you know what? Let's try it. And if it works, it works. If it doesn't, then I can get out and be a dependent wife. So it was hard.
Well, yeah, and it seemed to work out pretty well. You made it all the way to the top. So how was that? How was that being the senior enlisted, advisor to the general that's in charge of, all of Air Force OSI? I mean, what's that experience like? What's your day-to-day look like?
It's inspiring and it's challenging. Day to day, it's just a matter of like where we are. We travel a lot. We're at 260 locations worldwide, so I try to go out and see as many of our airmen as I can in a year, and just find out. If my job is to advise him on what's going on with his force, then that's where I need to be, because it's very hard to understand what they're up against because they're not in front of me every single day. So I find myself needing to get out and talk, and finding out what can we do to help them get that job done. They do phenomenal work. They inspire me. You give an airman, the opportunity, and they'll amaze you every single time. Yeah. And so just to watch them get the mission done, save lives, make our Air Force stronger is inspirational. But then it's challenging because there's a lot of hard things that we see and do every single day. Yeah. And it adds up, and it starts to wear on them, and I struggle with how, what can I do to make them healthy, to keep them vital and vigilant and strong and resilient. Yeah. And so
we'll come back to that because I really am interested in, I know as agents, you guys get to see kind of the worst that our Air Force has to offer sometimes. So we'll come back to resilience. But hey, to anybody listening, make a case, and I know I'm not sure if you guys have a recruiting, program, but to anybody listening that might be thinking about it or may have never heard about it, kind of like you, make the case for why would anyone want to be an Air Force OSI agent? I mean,
Well, if you're looking to, the biggest thing is speaking for those that can't speak for themselves. Being the voice of people that have been harmed, and then protecting that family. So we do two things. We protect the Air Force from the threat outside, and then, of course, we protect the Air Force from the threat within, whether that's criminal or, somebody's trying to do bad things to the Air Force from within. Yeah. And so we're here to find the truth and to preserve justice. And if you are looking to make a difference and speak for those children, men and women that can't speak for themselves, and to protect the nation against those entities that want to hurt us, this is where you should be.
Yeah. Now, is OSI fundamentally different from NCIS or the Army CID?
Fundamentally, we are very much aligned. Like NCIS, CID is a little bit different. They train different. They're organized differently. CID is a law enforcement arm, and NCIS and OSI are law enforcement and counterintelligence. Okay. excuse me, the biggest difference between the two of us is NCIS is their agent corps is strictly civilian.
Okay.
And in the Air Force, we are active duty and civilian.
Mm-hmm.
So that makes OSI uniquely different than any other law enforcement agency out there because we have both authorities, counterintelligence, and law enforcement with the active duty and then civilian components together gives us capability around the world.
Yeah. And your agents are federal agents, right? Because
Yes,
you go
sir.
to the FLETC, the Federal Law Enforcement Training Center,
Yes.
down in Georgia. So, yeah, it's a good deal.
Yep. 19 weeks. 97 of the law enforcement agencies go through the Federal Law Enforcement Training Center. So CID does not, but NCIS does. And then, of course, we have a follow-on course for OSI specifically.
Yeah. So I've had the opportunity to work with not just you and some of your predecessors, but chiefs and just agents, for a better part of my career. And like you mentioned earlier, they see a lot, they go through a lot. It's a tough business. What do you recommend to them as you go out and you travel, all over the world to see how they're doing? What is it that you think they can do to remain resilient, to be able to, continue on after, doing the nation's hard work?
Yes. That is something that I have been very aggressive with since I've been the command chief. And, we have a few of the values that we have within OSI is to take risk and to hunt, to be proactive in what we do. And I use that because it's not just agents in OSI. We have all different types of airmen in OSI. And so when we say hunting, it's just going after, being proactive about whatever it is in front of you. And in order to do that, you need to trust. So I'm trying to take that operational mindset and make it operational in our resiliency. Because if we're going to be hunting our enemies, we should be hunting our resiliency too. And this is no doubt that coming in and doing and seeing the things that we see every single day. And it may not even be horrible things. It may just been, you've been running, sex assault investigations for the last 2 years, and that really wears you down. And you start seeing things and documenting things and testifying to things that most people don't ever have to deal with. And whether they're in a deployed location or they're sitting in state someplace doing some of the criminal investigations, it's hard on them. And so they should be proactive about that. There's nothing normal about what they're seeing.
No.
And so the response to that, it shouldn't be average either. Like you need to be asking for help. You need to be going out and talking to somebody about the things that you see and the things that you do, and not just carry that with you, because it's going to catch up. Because there's a price that we pay when we take, when we're running these cases. And so I don't want them paying the price when they retire. They come in excited and energized and ready to change the world. And some takes 10 years, some takes 5 years, some takes 2 years. Heck, it could take 6 months before you start breaking down. And then now you're going to leave broken and carrying a lot of baggage with you that we didn't ask you to carry it.
Yeah.
You needed to pick it up, but you can put it down. And teaching them how to put that down sooner rather than later.
Yeah.
So when they do retire, they can do whatever they want. They're fully resilient and healthy. They came in the same way they're going out. That's where I want to get them, and breaking that stigma of I can't ask for help, which is, that's a stigma in the Air Force. That's a stigma in law enforcement across the world. Is that we got to be tough. We're the people that protect. We can never ask for help, and that is absolutely wrong.
Yeah.
And so we're trying to really break that down and create that, and we even, General Bullard and I had come up with, based on General Goldfein's resiliency tactical pause and your resiliency tactical pause, we took that a step further, and we created an opportunity where we expect them to take that weapon system down, because our airmen are the weapon system that we use to keep the Air Force agile.
Yeah.
And so just like any other weapon system, we take care of it. Well, are we taking care of us the same way we're taking care of our aircraft?
Yeah. How have you done it?
How
right?
have I
You've been
done
in
it?
this. You've been in this business a long time, and you've been an agent for a long time. I mean, how do you stay resilient? How do you keep your sanity through it all?
So, I work out a lot. That is, I learned that before I even came into OSI, that my stress relief is exercise, and so I make that a priority. A lot of times, the first thing that goes in OSI, because you get in and you get busy, is your personal care, physically working out. We don't have time for it. Well, you have to make time for it. So I do. I make sure that I get up early. I'm usually up by 4:15 in the morning, and that's the first thing I do, is I work out, and then I eat well, and I get, of course, being up at 4:00 in the morning. I'm usually in bed by 8, so I make sure I try to get my sleep, and then. I have my family support structure around me. I have 4 adult children. I have beautiful grandchildren, and then of course I have those that I can talk to, because sometimes it can't be the family that I talk to.
Yeah.
So I have people that I'm able to reach out to when I feel like I'm starting to slide.
Yeah, man, I really admire you for being able to get into bed at 8:00. Only time I'm in bed at 8:00 is if I'm sick and I can't, and I'm about to die.
It doesn't always happen, but if I'm not in bed at 8:00, I'm usually falling asleep wherever I'm at 8:00.
Yeah. No, that's good. What about, have you had a mentor throughout your career? Did you lean on anyone to help you throughout
I've had several.
Growing up in the Air Force?
Yeah, I've had a few at different stages of my life. Early on, I had someone that helped me see past myself, and work toward, not to be intimidated by people around me, and that I was worth it, which when I first came in the Air Force, I didn't think I deserved to be here. And so I had a mentor that kind of stayed with me for a while and helped me help build confidence in myself.
Yeah.
When I was a PME instructor, my mentor there happened to be the flight chief for the Airman Leadership School, and then he just taught me how to lead, and not to lower my standards. And then, of course, in OSI, I've had several mentors, but one in particular that I've had since he was my chief since the day I came into OSI, and he's always just kept it real. And so that's really, I tried to keep it real and be present.
Yeah. Keep it real. What is that when people, because I hear people say it all the time, what does that mean? What does that mean to you when you say somebody keeps it real?
So he tells me how it is.
Yeah.
Like when I ask him a question, he doesn't sugarcoat it. Why didn't I make the cut for that course, or, how come I didn't get to go, on that TDY? He tells me. And he's never just sugarcoated it. He just said, here's how it works. And he gave me the bigger picture. He always explained the why, which is very important to me. I always need to understand why things are happening in the way they happen. I just don't want to stay in my little silo. I want to see, how does the bigger picture operate, and how do I fit into that bigger picture? And he, not even knowing that that's what I needed, this individual was able to share those pieces with me that now made me understand I'm just a small piece of this big organization, and that there's a lot more going on here than I see. Yeah.
So clearly, you've had several mentors, and it's been an important part of your career. What would you say to the young men and women, whether they're OSI agents or just airmen out in the Air Force, who say, mentorship has kind of become a buzzword, and I'm not sure if it's really a thing, or, how do I go about? I'm a little bit uncertain about how to find a mentor. What advice would you have for a young person that's up and coming, and they may be struggling, or they may just be aspiring to be the next, Chief Beirne-Flint? What advice would you give them in terms of finding a mentor?
So mentoring is very personal. Like when I made Chief, I had someone come up to me and say, I'm going to be your mentor. And that was not going to work, because it was like, that's not how this works, and I don't like you. So I, in my experience, mentoring is very personal. And so we can try to programmatically enforce that, but it has to be, it's a relationship. And so I absolutely believe we need mentors. Maybe not the same one through our entire career, but someone that can inspire you, that will tell you what you need to hear, even if you don't want to hear it. And you need to trust that person. And the foundation of everything is that trust. And so, you may think it's a buzzword, but it's definitely, when you find that person that you can trust, and that no matter what you're doing, he'll either call your bluff or, have you, help you strive to get to that next level. That's earth shattering. I mean, that's really, it can change your life.
Yeah.
And so I would say go for it. And if you're having a hard time, just start talking to someone.
Okay, good. That's great advice. One of the things that we like to do on the show is we like to take questions sometimes we get them from the internets, from Facebook and Instagram and Twitter and other places. So I'm going to turn it over to Harry Kibbe, the producer and extraordinaire of this show, and he has a few questions from the audience.
Thank you, Chief. Chief Beirne-Flint, today our questions come from Twitter. People submitted questions by messaging us at CMSAF18. We picked the top questions, and here they are. Phil Bass noticed your outstanding Airman of the Year devices on we put your bio picture up there on Twitter, and he'd like to know, how can we help airmen reach their full potential and possibly follow in those footsteps?
So I would say, a lot of times in as growing up as airmen, we're always looking to the next best thing, like what's coming after this. We get to an assignment, we're in a job. Well, what do I need to do to get to the next job? And we forget that we need to focus on what's in front of us today and to master what we have in front of us today. And I can tell you, those two of them I earned when I was under the Allied Command Europe, under NATO. And I had I wasn't looking forward. I was looking to make my current location better, and how to do that, and to be involved. And so I wasn't looking for the next best thing. I was just trying to be the best airman I could for the organization that I was in. And so I did that for 2 years in a row, and that's how I got the first two. And the third one was when I was a PME instructor. And again, it wasn't looking forward. I was just owning what I had in front of me. And I loved my job. I loved taking care of airmen. I loved making a difference. And I wasn't looking to the next stripe. I wasn't looking to the next job. I wasn't looking to the future. I was just trying to own the present and making what I was doing currently the most important thing. So
like Chief says, bloom where you're planted and pursue excellence every day.
Absolutely.
Okay. Thank you very much, Chief. AFSA Chapter 211 wants to know, what do you think is the most underrated leadership skill?
Underrated leadership skill. Well, I don't know if it would be a skill. I recently read an article on accountability, and I think as leaders, whether you're a young leader, like as an NCO or a new captain, or you're a chief or a colonel or GO, accountability is really important. But there's a lot of courage that goes into being accountable, and I feel like sometimes we are afraid to tell people what they need to hear, and that we're afraid to hold people accountable, whether it's because we don't want to stir the pot, or this is a good airman, I don't want to ruin their career, or everybody likes that airman and I don't want to be the bad guy, or trying to change a culture in a unit that is toxic, and being the person to stand up and saying this is not this is unsat, and these airmen deserve better. It's our responsibility as leaders to have that courage to stand up to ensure that those situations are being corrected, because that's what our jobs are. And so while it may not be a skill, I think to have the courage to hold people accountable and to give that feedback is very important.
Okay. That was for AFSA Chapter 211, and this one comes from Christina, who asks if you could share with us, who is someone who has inspired you and why? Present company excluded.
Harry inspires everybody.
Yes. So I would have to take this home and say my parents. My mom and dad have worked very hard their entire lives, and if it wasn't for them and them teaching me how to put my heart and soul into everything I do, and to be honest and not take no for an answer, I don't know if I would have gotten even remotely as far as I ever have. So, I mean, my dad and my mom, my dad retired from the telephone company. My mom is still a nurse, and they're very passionate and dedicated, not just to their work, but to their family. And they taught me how to do it all. And that's where I started. And every single day, I talk to my parents 2 or 3 times a week, every single week, and they keep me grounded. And they're my pride and joy.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Chief. And thank you to those who submitted the questions. As always, you can reach us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Back to you, Chief Wright.
All right. Thanks, Hey, what gets you out of the bed in the morning? What inspires you?
Well, a lot of things get me out of the bed in the morning. The alarm clock. Seeing what I can do to make the world a better place for our airmen.
Yeah.
The job isn't done. Sometimes I wake up in the middle of the night because I didn't get something to where I needed it to be. The changes that I'm trying to make aren't happening fast enough. So I know when I wake up, I have a whole day to continue to work at it and continue to try to make a stronger Air Force. And I have, my organization is where I'm starting from, but I know that as I work for them, they're working for the Air Force, and together we're creating a much better team.
Yeah. The kind of opposite part of that question that I always ask is, then what keeps you up at night, right? What about the Air Force or the world kind of concerns you and has you thinking the most?
Like the opposite, the resiliency of my airmen.
Mm-hmm.
Because I don't know if I'm making changes fast enough. I'm trying to change a culture, and that's one of the hardest things you can change in an organization. And sometimes I feel like maybe I'm not doing enough. Maybe I'm not saying enough. And that keeps me up.
Yeah.
Because they're going to go out there and they're going to do exactly what we need them to do, regardless of where they're at in their resiliency. And they deserve.
Yeah.
They deserve better.
It's been a couple of years since I had an opportunity to visit your headquarters and personally thank not all, but some of your agents for what they do, but I think they should know how much we as airmen appreciate what they do for all of us. Protecting us from without and from within. I know it's very, very important work. Most people get nervous when they hear OSI because they think they're in trouble, and you may be, but we really do. I want to pass along my thanks not only to you and General Bullard and all of the leadership, but all of your agents and all of the support staffs of OSI all across the globe that help protect us and keep us safe. So I just want to say that, and I want to say thank you, man, for
we appreciate
taking care
that.
of us.
Thank you. We appreciate that.
What are you reading these days?
So I'm reading a lot of stuff. I had to write them all down because I tend to forget all the titles or the names.
Yeah.
I spend a lot of days, as you do, I'm sure, reading emails and documents, and so I have to kind of split it up. I do a lot of podcasts.
Okay.
So I listen to a lot of podcasts, and then I also listen to audiobooks because I spend a lot of time in DC traffic.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm usually able to listen to more books than I am actually to read.
Okay.
I'm currently reading Switch.
Yeah.
It's by Chip and Don Heath.
Mm-hmm.
It's about change. I again, being in this organization and trying to institute some of the changes is huge culturally. And so how to best go after that. I just reread, at least for the third time, Start With Why by Simon Sinek. And then I've also read, I'm also in the middle of reading The Infinity Game, which I think is you announced a few months ago, and so I picked that one up. I love Simon Sinek.
Oh, yeah.
So that's a good one.
Okay, good. Any, and you said this is your first
yes, my
podcast
first
that
podcast
you've actually
ever.
Okay, no, you'll be able to listen to yourself as you're sitting in DC traffic.
Great, that's great.
Yeah. What about any hobbies? What do? You work hard. You got a very important job. Lots of tough things happening in the world that you have to pay attention to. On top of being the chief and all the other things that come along with, and pressures that come along with being a chief. What about any hobbies?
I am fortunate enough to have a phenomenal husband who is now retired airman, and 4 adult children, and I have 3 grandchildren. Ooh. With 1 on the way, so that'll be 4. I do have 1 that actually lives with us, and so that, to me, going home and being able to see my granddaughter is a gift. So we babysit on the weekend, and so that's my hobby.
Okay,
that's what I do when I'm not traveling. I am home hanging out with my granddaughter.
So you look about 27 and
32.
32, right? So the question is, what do your grandbabies call you? Are you a nana G-Ma?
Close. I wanted Aunt Karen, but my children absolutely refused. Absolutely refused. So they call me Nana.
Nana, okay.
Yes.
You don't look like a Nana, but we'll
I couldn't do grandma. I couldn't do grandma. Besides, that's my mom.
Okay.
So it couldn't be the same. So I'm Nana.
Okay.
Or my oldest grandchild calls me Nan.
Mm-hmm. Got it. Okay. Well, Karen, I just want to say thank you. One of the things that I didn't mention is that you're also a member of the AFSELC, the Air Force Senior Enlisted Leader Council, which is the group of senior chief master sergeants and other senior enlisted leaders that allow me to do my job as a chief master sergeant in the Air Force and provide me the right advice and guidance. And you've been there the whole way, helping us as we make decisions about the Air Force. And so I want to say thank you. Not just for what you do as the senior enlisted leader for OSI, but as a member of my inner circle that helps me make decisions about the Air Force. So, anything else you want to say before we roll out today?
I want to say thank you for inviting me here.
Yeah.
When I got the request, I thought it was a mistake. I was like, "You sure you got the right Beirne-Flint?"
Yeah.
But Harriet, I want to say thank you on the work that you're doing. For your airmen is phenomenal, and that we are benefiting every day from the great leadership that you've provided us, and it's an honor to serve with you and to be here to take this opportunity to sit down and talk with you.
Yeah. It sounds corny, and I always say it, but man, teamwork makes the dream work, and
Absolutely.
I love having a great team of folks around me. So thank you. Before we go, let me just take a minute to thank a few people. First, of course, our guest for today, Chief Karen Beirne-Flint, the command chief for our Air Force OSI. Thanks to everyone who submitted questions over the internets. And special thanks to the team who makes this happen, our lead technical producer, and that's Staff Sergeant Kat Walters, and the three amigos, John, Juan, and Tony. And, of course, my big-headed PA advisor, Senior Master Sergeant Harry Kippy. Lastly, thank you to the current and future leaders out there who are on the front lines leading your teams. This has been your Blueprint Leadership Podcast. Thanks for listening. If better is possible, good is never enough, and you are your greatest competition.